Okay, so here we are with part 5. And in this episode, I want to start with going over some of the things I missed out of the previous episode. So we'll just start from where we left off. The Great Mutation seems like so long ago now. 21st of December 2020, the winter solstice. Saturn and Jupiter conjunct on the 0 degree line from the Synchronical, the video you can see on this channel. And we went through all of the Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions from 1842 all the way through up until May 2000. And we looked at how on this particular conjunction in 1980-81, this is the sort of the signifier when Saturn and Jupiter become conjunct in the next element that they will begin to be conjunct in. So in this case it's Libra. All the previous ones there throughout the last sequence of conjunctions were in earth signs, Capricorn, Taurus and Virgo, whereas this one is in an air sign. It's like a foreshadowing. It's the penultimate conjunction in the sequence. It foreshadows the next element, so it's Libra. It's an air element rather than an earth element. So that happened in 1980-81. The penultimate conjunction, then it goes to the last conjunction in that sequence of earth signs in Taurus, and then it goes to air signs, and it continues to happen in air signs now from the 21st of December last year. And I just want to take another little look at that, and something that I left out, didn't have time to put it in. So regarding that penultimate conjunction of the earth sign sequence, where all of these conjunctions happen in earth signs, or happened in earth signs. This penultimate one here happened in 1980-81, and I thought it was very resonant that during this period of the penultimate conjunction in the air signs, well, in the air sign of Libra, foreshadowing the next element that the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction happens in, that these should be erected. The Georgia Guide stones, these were erected in this period, during that period of the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in the air sign, the penultimate conjunction in the Earth sequence, which was of course in an air sign, foreshadowing the next element. And then the Georgia Guide stones should be erected in that period. And we all know what they are. They're the commandments for a new era. And the main commandment that a lot of people are interested in is that one, of course, that we need to maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. So I thought it was very resonant to put that in for this episode. And obviously after that we saw the conjunction again in May 2000, and then the big one last year. Also during that period of 1980-81, I think this is also important to put in, is that the Saturn hexagon, the hexagon on the North Pole of Saturn, was discovered during that particular conjunction. Very, very resonant. I thought that was essential to put that in, and I didn't have time to put it in the last episode. And we're going to be touching on that a little bit later in this episode. So now it's all past. The Great Mutation has happened. Seems like so long ago now. And during that period, this was introduced. And I don't think it's all about money. There's something else about this introduction of this into our society. A carrot and stick back to normality, or so they're saying. I would heavily disagree with that. But of course now, after the Great Mutation of the 21st of December 2020, this mutation will happen now. It continues to happen in air signs. It will continue until it changes into water signs. But that's what the Great Mutation was. It was a transition of the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction happening in earth signs into happening in air signs. So the earth signs to air sign reset. That was happening above, and below we had the World Economic Forum's Great Reset. Hugely astrologically, maybe astronomically as well. We'll be getting into that a bit later in this episode as well. But very, very synchronistic, very resonant, mind-blowing astrological as above, so below correlation, I think. And we looked at the 0 degree line in the model that we have for this series and the synchronical. And we looked at how this is formed, and the 0 degree line is between Capricorn and Aquarius. And we looked at how there's a hugely resonant symbol of a certain organization. Not only does it look like it fits perfectly in the model, it also has a little Saturn magic square in that. And I think this organization is hugely important during this period as well. We'll be getting into that in later episodes. And we found that if we took the Lion of Leo, very solar image there on this figure, and a unicorn, white unicorn, very, very symbolic of the moon, put them on the model, and then looked at what is between them, which is this, the garter, and shame on you if you think it's evil. That garter is worn obviously here, just below the knee, just above the shin, a sort of cusp line of the knee and the shin, if you like. And if we check back on our zodiac man, that area is Capricorn and Aquarius, which is exactly where the Great Mutation happened on the model between Capricorn and Aquarius, on that 0 degree line of the synchronical model. Garter fits perfectly there. And I missed out something when I was going through this in the previous episode. Now, if you take the Scottish version of the Order of the Garter, it looks like this. And there is the seal of Saturn, right there in the centre. Unmistakable, hugely resonant. I thought I'd put that in this episode because I just didn't have time to put it in the last one. So I thought that was necessary to put in there. And just going back to the synchronical angle briefly, this model, of course, touches on the Solar King and the Lunar Queen coming together in their union, and when they do that, they produce the divine androgyne, and we put the divine androgyne as well as the Solar King and the Lunar Queen on the model. And something else that resonates perfectly with the divine androgyne, beautifully resonant with the divine androgyne, from alchemy, is this figure, the Baphomet. Eliphas Levi's the Baphomet. And just want to take a closer look at the Baphomet. He fits perfectly there as a sort of a divine androgyne counterpart, resonates perfectly with the divine androgyne. But he also fits perfectly on the model in place of the divine androgyne, because he is half Capricorn goat and half Aquarius man, or half Aquarius human. It fits perfectly there, right in that area, the Saturn house, the single Saturn house. There he is, half Capricorn goat, half Aquarius man or human. And let's take a sort of a bit more of a zoom in on the Baphomet. If we take a look here at this figure, what he's sort of sitting on here. He's sitting on this cubic structure here. This is some sort of cube. It's very much like a cube, and it's this cube is on top of a sphere, or a half sphere in this instance, but it's a sphere. It's just a half sphere. And I thought that was beautifully resonant with Saturn. And the cube that he's sitting on, this cube block, if you like, and that cube being on top of a sphere or half sphere, it's perfectly resonant with the North Pole configuration on Saturn. The hexagon there, a two-dimensional version of a three-dimensional cube. So I think the Baphomet sits amazingly well on Saturn, in that Saturn house, on the model, on that 0 degree line made up of Capricorn goat and Aquarius human. Fits there amazingly well. So I just want to touch a little bit more as well on what this figure resonates with. The devil in the tarot card. It's perfectly resonant there. And in fact, this tarot card is based on Eliphas Levi's Baphomet. This tarot card gets its inspiration from this figure of the Baphomet. And if we look a little bit more closely at the Devil Tarot card here, we have the man and the woman either side of the Baphomet, exactly like the model. The only difference is they're at different sides, but it's about perspective. If we consider that these pillars, the Lunar Queen and the Solar King, these represent these pillars, and these pillars are they represent Solomon's temple. And you can be within the temple, or you can be outside of the temple, and these figures would swap sides in that case, if you were looking into the temple or if you were looking out of the temple. So I thought this was very resonant to put in here, because it fits perfectly in the model. And just regarding those two figures there of the man and the woman swapping sides with how they are in the model, here we have a representation of that similar configuration, where we have the woman on the left here with the typically traditionally long hair, and the gentleman, if you can call it a gentleman, some weird snake demon figure, I'm not sure really, but there we have the gentleman with the short hair and the female on the other side with the long hair, and that fits with the Devil Tarot card. So not only does the devil resonate with the Baphomet, he resonates with the divine androgyne, same wings, same winged figure, the above and the below, And that's another thing about the Baphomet here. Not only does he fit perfectly with being Capricorn, Goat, and Aquarius human, he's pointing above here with this side of his body, and below with this side of his body, resonant perfectly with the red triangle and the blue triangle, the male fire triangle and the female water triangle. And just regarding this divine androgyne figure, gender reassignment surgeries on the rise in the US. Studies find hugely pertinent sort of area of human behavioral research at the moment. The whole gender reassignment, the whole trans movement, if you like. Gender reassignment surgery is booming in 2020 was the headline from September last year. And there we have, well, an androgyne, perhaps, male, female, holding the signs there. And there is a huge market in gender or sex reassignment surgery. Yeah, there's a market. It was more than $300 million in 2019, and it will witness a 25.1% increase in compound annual growth rate during the period of 2020 to 2026. Hugely synchronistic, I think, that while the great mutation was happening on this line in between the Solar King and the Lunar Queen, we get this behavioral marker now increasing after 2020. Hugely significant. And just looking at the devil figure there, and what is he sitting on? I'm sure we've all heard of this black cube idea, Saturn and the black cube. But what is he sitting on there? He's actually sitting on a half cube. If you read Eliphas Levi and the tarot card designers, this is the Rider-Waite deck. He's sitting on a half cube. And that is hugely resonant with this. This is the UN prayer room. We have exactly the same sort of structure there in the UN prayer room, the United Nations prayer room. Coincidence? Maybe. Is it something else? So there's just a little bit of a signifier to say, yes, the Baphomet and the Devil Tarot resonate perfectly. The as above, so below hands and the wings, etc. fits perfectly on the model as well. And it's the 15th card in the major arcana, and 15 being another great Saturn resonance, because the Saturn magic square, the columns and the horizontal rows and the diagonals all add up to 15, which is hugely resonant with Saturn again. And he fits perfectly there, again, on the 0 degree line between Capricorn Goat and Aquarius human. There he is, a very human face, big horns, and that's resonant also with our old friend the Baphomet, sitting on Saturn amazingly well, so beautifully resonant on this model. So I want to take another little look now at this North Pole configuration, the hexagon on the North Pole of Saturn, two-dimensional version of a three-dimensional cube, and I want to explore this a bit more. whenever you see any big pushes for big new tech, this sort of figure is always employed within that. It's either a hexagon that, with this, in this case, it's got a little fingerprint in it, but it's either the hexagon or the cube. And obviously a cube is three-dimensional, and if you put the three-dimensional lines in there, you end up with the seal of Saturn. Obviously, usually it's this kind of figure. The seal is usually that way up rather than on its side as it is there. But there's always, I think anyway, and I think you will see it as well once you understand what I'm getting at here. But there's always either a cube, a hexagon, the seal. So it's either a cube, a hexagon, or a seal, or Saturn, or the rings, or some sort of Saturn resonant imagery that goes along with this big push for big tech, particularly in the realms of big tech identity or identification, big tech. So let's have a look what we can see regarding this image, and it's how it shows up in a lot of pushes for big tech, big identity tech, big smart tech, big future tech. And I just wanted to bring this up first of all. This is the National Vital Statistics Systems C19 alert. This was brought out in March last year, March the 24th, 2020. And we'll just blow this up a little bit in a moment. But this was the new ICD code introduced for C19 deaths. This was on the CDC website, and it was some guidance for doctors regarding C19 on death certificates and how they should go about that. And we're looking at this really, this is at the end of the document. I couldn't fit it on the screen, so I've had to sort of isolate it here. And it's about whether or not it should be reported on death certificates only with a confirmed test. So I'll just blow that up a bit. And the guidance was that it should be reported on death certificates for all decedents where the disease caused or is assumed to have caused or contributed to death. So, some doctors would have said, well, has he got the symptoms? Is he dead? Yep, okay, stick it on the death certificate. And let's put that on the death toll. And of course, those kinds of figures are what contributed to lockdown policy. So a doctor could just assume that C19 was the cause of death, put it on the death certificate, it gets added to the statistics, and we have lockdown as a result of that kind of policy included in this document. And let's just blow that image up there. And I couldn't believe that this was here, really, but there it is. The seal of Saturn is right there in this document, which is on the CDC's website. It's still there, you can find it. Clear as day, Saturn seal. Beautifully resonant here. When you consider that the date, March 24th, 2020, obviously the day after the lockdown began in the UK, first lockdown, when Saturn was at this 0 degree line on our model between Capricorn and Aquarius. And this was another one. This was another interesting one. Johns Hopkins researchers engineer tiny shape-changing machines that deliver medicine efficiently to the GI tract, called Theragrippers. This story came out last year. They're inspired by a parasitic worm that clamps onto its host's intestines. So some Johns Hopkins researchers inspired by parasites. I don't believe that that's the half of it, but there we are. And of course, let's just fill it in here, but I'm sure you can see. Here it is. These are these thera-grippers, 6-pointed there, beautifully. There it is in the middle, little hexagon in the middle, and that's what they look like when they clamp on with this hexagon in the middle. Hugely resonant with this idea that whenever you look at big tech, future pushes for this future tech in health and ID, the cube or some variation of the cube linking to Saturn and the North Pole configuration is there. And of course, Johns Hopkins is famous or infamous now for being part of this global pandemic exercise. So this is an Event 201 issue right here. And Billy Boy Goats and his ID 2020 program. And digital identity is being defined now, and we need to get it right. We need to get digital ID right, he says. Yes, of course we do, Billy Boy. And love this down here. Check out our certification mark. The mark? We need to get the mark, do we, Billy Boy? Is that what you're saying? But there it is. There's the seal on its side in this Billy Boy Goats push for digital ID. And we all know what he wants to do. He's got this little bee in his bonnet where he wants to put something in everybody's arm. Everybody, 7 billion people across the planet, that's what he wants to do. And again, the Bill and Melinda Foundation evolved in Event 201, Global Pandemic Exercise. I think I'm seeing a theme forming here. There's no theme, it's all just a big coincidence. What are you talking about? And another image, again from the website. If you go to this website, the ID 2020 push, and it's just a coincidence. It's ID 2020 as well. I mean, they've been pushing for this for years, but it just so happened to be ID 2020. It's just a big coincidence. It's nothing to worry about. And there we have it again. The 6-pointed right there with the image of the fingerprint in the middle. It's always there. This little marker for some reason. And here again we have the little cubes for this global identity verification from Trust Stamp. There's a little fingerprint again. Trust Stamp. There we are. And again, if you do your research, look into this, you'll find him there again with his agenda to to put something in every single person alive on the planet, to put something in their body. And we all remember this, and this is being pushed for now. This was introduced, or at least the idea of this was introduced in April, May 2020, some mere weeks into the pandemic. Because even then, as they were telling you they didn't know anything about the virus, they knew for sure that eventually we would need these vaccine passports. And there it is. There's the little cube, little hexagon, cube within a cube, perhaps that one. And I was looking at this image when I was kind of putting this together, and I thought there's something missing from this image. What is it? I just can't quite put my finger on what is missing from this tech here, from this push for big tech. And then it twigged, and I thought, well, I might as well just put it in. So there we are. That's it seems correct now. Seems complete to me. It was missing before. Now there it is. And Google AI systems. There it is. There's the little cube, the hexagon first of all, and then the cube. And yeah, you're probably going to need this AI system to power this in some way. And you can use all that tech. You can use all that tech in your new smart home. That's all good. Smart technology for the smart home, the new smart home. And there it is, little cube house there. There it is. And From the World Economic Forum, we have the known traveller digital identity. They explain how this digital identity is going to happen. They're really helpful because they want us to, get onto this. There they are, the hexagon there, a little mobile with a little cube on it. And I love how on this video, you can watch this on YouTube, I think it's still there. I love how the emboldened part of this text here is perhaps subliminally saying that we must face biometrics. Face biometrics. And it's being put out by the World Economic Forum, no less. So again, this is another Event 201 sponsored push for transformational technology, future technology coming as rapidly as possible by these by the people behind it. And we are going to face biometrics. Face biometrics there is the little sublim, and there it is, face biometrics from this same video. And there's a little cube there, a little hexagon on this poor chap's face on the Known Traveller Digital Identity Explained video, which you can find. I'm pretty sure this is the World Economic Forum video channel, YouTube channel. And one of my favourites, I think this is probably my favourite, Operation Warp Speed. This was the push for the big V in the US, and there it is, the cube there, on the push for the big V, the big C19V. Beautiful. How resonant is that? And you can use your vaccine passport eventually to fly somewhere, maybe go somewhere, maybe fly to another country. But you must do that sustainable development goals there with the lovely ring around the Earth. It's a lovely rainbow ring as well. I'm sure that has some sort of meaning. We'll be getting into that at some point. And, you must think about your carbon footprint if you fly, if you do it sustainably. And there's the lovely MasterCard hexagon there. And I just thought I'd include this. I like this one myself. I'm going to keep this in. I did think about not including it, but I am going to include it. There we have the double cross there. The PM of the UK being framed by the double cross, and the double cross there becomes Saturn's seal, so I'm keeping that in. And this lovely bunch of fellas in charge of the country during this time of crisis, being helped by the Behavioural Insights team, which there, its emblem is a cube. It's just beautiful. And they partner with the Cabinet Office, the Behavioural Insights team. You can find out more about them on UK Column. Why not check out UK Column's website and their various video channels? Maybe not YouTube because they've been banned from that. Oh, what a surprise. But of course the Cabinet Office has the Royal Seal there, just blowing that up, and the Garter in the middle of the Solar King, and the Lunar Queen imagery, which is resonant beautifully with Saturn. So what is it about this? What are they getting at? What's the point here? What is this kind of symbol, or this symbol, these related symbols, the cube, the hexagon, the seal, rings, that sort of thing? What are they getting at? What is happening there? Is it just as above, so below resonance with the great mutation happening during this new century, this new millennium? Well, we're going to be getting into that. We're going to be getting into exactly what I think this is all about. there it all is in one little collective indoctrination, perhaps, maybe. Symbol for the powers above us looking down at those beneath them, or that they see as beneath them. And a future of, well, we're going to be getting into that in future episodes. So let's just kind of wrap up this episode with a little look at the astrology of 2020, just to remind us that not only was it a sort of momentous political year, a momentous health year. I'm sure nobody needs reminding of just how momentous it was, and you know, we all were affected by it in some way. But I just want to look at the astrology of 2020, just to remind ourselves that not only was it politically and health, societally momentous, the astrology really was momentous as well. Of course, it relates to the model as well, so we're going to be taking a look at that. But just regarding the Solar King and the Lunar Queen on the model, what have we seen that happens between them as they, you know, are markers between the pillars of Solomon's Temple? Well, of course, we have the divine androgyne between them. We also have the six-pointed, the red and blue six-pointed, fits perfectly there, resonant with a certain organisation that we've touched on. But we also have when the sun and the moon come together. We have this. We have an eclipse, basically. And that kind of mock-up there of an eclipse that I've put on there, what is around that? What is around the sun and the moon coming together? And this happened on the 21st of June 2020, the summer solstice, so opposite the date of the Great Mutation, which was the winter solstice. We had an eclipse. And what is that? What are we seeing there? We're seeing an eclipse that happened hugely resonantly over, well, it travelled across many continents, but most kind of resonantly across China. We're very, very close to Wuhan, which I thought was just hugely resonant. But what do we see? What do we see around the eclipse there? What's happening? Well, it's a corona, and that leads us to this phrase, which is just hugely synchronistic, resonant. But it also means crown. Corona also means crown. And how much of the crowned in society are featured in this reset, the year of 2020? Well, of course, we all know Charlie Boy is featured very largely during this whole thing, being very vocal about how we need to reset everything. And even went to, or it was suggested he was going to go to a Davos event in 2021 called The Great Reset. And then the Queen piped up not so long ago, saying that we all need to take the V, do your duty, take that V, get it in your arm, do it for me, I'm your Queen, you've got a duty. And there is that crown on top of the garter there, and I just thought this was very, very resonant as well. And there it is, this crown on the garter. I was going to put it on the model. I thought about putting the eclipse on the model, But I didn't want to do that because, well, it would have looked something like that, but I didn't want to do that. I thought it was a bit, well, it was just incorrect, basically. It was just astrologically correct, because this eclipse happened over here. If you take the model as, you know, a different form of the astrological wheel, it happened between Gemini and Cancer. So it would have looked like that, and I just thought, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put it in there as a marker, another marker for the 0 degree line. But let's just look at the astrology of it, this 0 degree line, the Great Mutation year. This is where it happened. This is where the eclipse happened. When the sun, Father Sun, the Solar King, entered the house of the Mother, Cancer, and then he was joined there by Lunar Queen, and they came together in their union. That happened on the 21st of June 2020, and very resonant with this alchemical imagery, coming together for their union. And then 6 months later, Saturn and Jupiter form on this 0 degree line, when, obviously it's the opposite line, if you like, when the winter solstice happens, when the sun is there on this winter solstice line between Sagittarius and Capricorn on the zodiac. And while this was happening, during a couple of days before this great mutation occurred, when Saturn and Jupiter are exactly on this 0 degree line at 0 degrees, both of them. So it was an amazing alignment. When this happened, not only was the sun there at one side of the great mutation, but the moon was there as well. The sun and the moon were sitting in the days leading up to the great mutation, 19th, 20th, 21st. Well, the 19th of December, basically, the moon was right there on the cusp of Aquarius and Pisces. I just thought that was amazing, that it was almost like a mini model was happening in the sky during the great mutation, with the sun and the moon on either side of Saturn and Jupiter. So not only did you have the great mutation happening, you had the sun and the moon either side, the Solar King and the Lunar Queen looking on at the conjunction there. So just going to wrap it up here, and we just put Jupiter there. So what was the significance? What was the significance of the great mutation, if anything, apart from obviously the V coming into view? The whole year, I think, was leading up to this particular date, astrologically, certainly. But what were people saying about this in the wider media, the mainstream media, the lamestream media, the fake stream media, whatever you want to call it? Well, what they were saying was that it was resonant with the Star of Bethlehem. The Star of Bethlehem. And we all know what happened regarding the Star of Bethlehem. Well, so they say, there was a birth of a very important figure that lasted some 2,000 years. Happening around Christmas, of course. And this got repeated, this Star of Bethlehem idea, that Jupiter and Saturn, the conjunction was, there was a resonance there that this was perhaps the birth of some other figure, a new figure for the new era. And of course we had the BBC chiming in, Christmas star, Jupiter and Saturn in a line in the night sky. So what was being born perhaps, after the Solar King and the Lunar Queen came together on the summer solstice, and they were there, present either side of that happening in the sky during the Great Mutation. What was being born? Was it the Baphomet? Was the Baphomet being signified as being born? Were they anointing this idea of this figure? Well, perhaps they were. If you look at this image, seems to make more sense that that's what was happening. And I'm going to leave it there for now. We'll pick up again in part 6.